And we are live. There we go. Hello, Alan. We see you. um, so it's not letting me cut and paste into the messenger, which is fine. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? How's it going?
I am great. Excited to be here with you, excited to see some new faces, and
Yeah.
excited to share our experiences with CPTSD and how we got to where we are.
Yeah. And I heard you have some big news, huh?
Yes. So I am 18 weeks pregnant, and I just found out the other night that we're having our first boy. So I am over the moon excited.
Congratulations. That is so exciting. Do you have any names picked out yet? You might not want to air that out on the live. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe I'll keep that one a little bit secret for now. But yes, we do have a name picked.
Ah, I love it. I love it. I see we have some people rolling in. Alan says congratulations. So if you are joining, welcome to the Divergent Talent Alchemist. I'm Jen Benford, and I am the author of DTA. I'm also a content creator and a coach. I'm joined today by the incredible Emily. She is the founder of Hippiness Is and author of Soft Girl Era, Mind Maps to the Heart. I love that title. So this is a digital interactive book from experience, and it's written to help you heal. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And Emma Steele says, so happy for you. We are watching the comments and we're going to try to catch them all, but we are on our phones because unfortunately, we do not have the desktop feature yet for Substack. But so Emily's mission manifested at an early age, right? So she used to be a social worker and she worked with a lot of youth and adolescents. And those stories and cases that she was dealing with reminded her a lot of her own self. So her story, much like mine, took a familiar turn when her nervous system finally caught up with her output. When we think about productivity equaling, success and what that looks like and all the things. So we're today going to be sharing both of our experiences about CPTSD and how complex trauma becomes deeply wired into the nervous system. So um, we're going to talk about difficult topics today. Listen at your own discretion, and just be mindful. Our conversation comes from lived experience and professional perspective. So none of this is medical advice. And we encourage you to seek out mental health support from a licensed healthcare professional when navigating trauma or mental health challenges. So, before we dive in and I kick it over to Emily, just one quick announcement. I am partnering with Mellow Sleep to do a giveaway of one of their hotel pillows. If you're not familiar with Mellow, super comfy brand for all of our, sensory needs. So I sleep on this pillow every night. I sink into it. If you're interested in entering, please email me your name as well as, well, I'll have your email. So that'll be good. My email is hello at Benford Talent Alchemy. And you can check out all their products at mellowsleep.com. And I'll pull a winner tomorrow. So now I've done enough talking. I'm gonna toss the baton to Em to introduce herself and we can dive into this discussion.
Awesome. Yeah. So, like Jen was saying, my background and my education are in social work. I kind of went into that field because of my lived experience throughout, my early life. So, there was a lot of like family dynamics that were unhealthy, a lot of, self beliefs that did not contribute to who I am at my core. And when I was working in the field of social work, I spent a lot of my time with kids and, teens whose stories reminded me a lot of what I had been through. And I think that was, super relatable, super easy to a certain degree to work with them because that compassion is just naturally there. But, after so much time being in that environment, the nervous system really catches up. And, they say that, we move into what we know, right? So I went from like a chaotic youth and young adulthood into a field that was equally chaotic. So for me, it was just normal. I would always say, like, oh, well, when one of the kids is in a crisis, like, come to Miss Emily because, like, she can handle it. At a certain point, though, my system was like, okay, but there's a reason you're so good at this. And maybe we should analyze that.
Right, right, right. Talk to me more about that moment, and what it felt like for you.
Yeah, so there was a point where, out of my control, the group home that I was working in closed. So I had to move to a different demographic, which was young adults in like up to their 30s.
Mhm.
And when I got to that point and I was sitting with these other adults, I just started to realize like really similar traits between myself and the people I was sitting across from. So there was this crossroads where I was like, I don't think I'm really at the point where I can be walking the walk and talking the talk in a like whole genuine way. And I didn't feel um, like, it was right of me to, try and preach these coping skills and these strategies to others when I hadn't embodied them yet myself. So from that, I chose to go to trauma therapy, and that just kinda, like, unboxed everything, and I quickly spiraled downward. And I ended up resigning from social work to take time off and really get down to the nitty-gritty of my own nervous system and my own past to work through all of those constructs that I had built.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible, and hi, Tina. We have a hey in the comments. She waved. Um, wow. So, a couple things come to mind. I actually was just talking with a friend who's a therapist the other day, and she had shared with me there is no there is no, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's late here. You do not need to do therapy yourself in order to become a therapist or a social worker, which I thought was really interesting. And what I find super incredible about your particular story is that you actually identified that yourself, because I think there might be a lot of practitioners out there that don't necessarily realize that. And can you really help other people if you haven't done the inner work yourself?
Yeah, and, I think especially with the helping professions, I think, a lot of the people that choose to go into them are folks who come from a background where it's been a bit tumultuous, right? So it is a little ironic that you don't have to, have your own treatment and you can go and kind of talk the talk at people.
Right.
But that was one thing I never wanted to do. I don't want to talk at anyone, because it's just a whole different ballgame when you're sitting with someone and working through something with them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You wanna walk with them. I love that. So what are some of the signs that showed up for you when you were going through this? And I know you went to trauma therapy as well, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I was like 29, I started to get symptoms of POTS, which is an autonomic dysfunction. Um, and I was going to all of these doctors trying to figure out what's going on with me. I'd be getting these heart palpitations, I'd be blacking out and passing out, like I would have these tremors, like all of these physical symptoms. And, I had a really difficult time getting diagnosed. But it ended up being a nervous system dysfunction. So on like my cellular level, my body was saying, we cannot do this anymore. Which, in retrospect is so crazy because like the little signs along the way were there, like flashing little lights here and there, but our society doesn't really let us pay attention to those. It's like, keep going, go to work, don't call off, like all of these things that are kind of ingrained in our society, that just so easily get ignored.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I once had a leader say to me, oh, like, really proudly, "I've never taken a sick day." This was earlier in my career, and I was like, I didn't know what to think at the time, but now I look back and I'm like, "Oh gosh, take care of yourself. Your health and wellness is the most important thing. If you don't have that." How has that, diagnosis, like, tell me more about how you walk through life now a little bit differently, maybe knowing that, um, are you feeling a sense of, like, hypervigilance at all? Like, talk to me about some of the symptoms and then also, um, yeah, how you're navigating now.
Yeah, so I honestly took about 14 months from the time I left social work to the time I started to feel like I had gone through what I needed to and my body was able to start functioning again.
Yeah,
So it was a lot of like internal work that I think my system needed to feel and integrate in order to bring my physical capacity back up. So with the diagnoses of CPTSD and POTS, um, I have to be really, really conscientious of my mind state, my emotions as they come and go. And it's pretty much standard practice for me now to not brush anything off. When these emotions come up, they need to be dealt with love. And it can still be challenging in some moments, like, I'll have recurring thoughts, still try to pop in and, like, throw me off track. Thankfully, after enough practice, I'm able to, like, identify them and say, "Okay, I know why you're here. I know what this means. Let's, reframe, rewire, and, let you rest." But for the longest time, it was so difficult to get, like, a wrangle on those thoughts and those feelings because really we spend all of this time for you and me up to our 30s, living under these paradigms that we've built to try to keep ourselves safe.
yeah, 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 absolutely, well said. For me, I was diagnosed with CPTSD last year, and when I got that diagnosis, I was like, "Oh my goodness." Everything started to make sense, but I was bawling in full transparency in my healthcare provider's office. She's like, "It's okay," but it's heavy stuff. And the C in front of the PTSD is the complex part, which for those of you listening, I'm sure you all probably know this already, but I'll tell you anyway, that's, repeated patterns or of trauma. So whereas PTSD is just one singular event. So it compounds over time, right? And we are taught, like you said, in society from a very young age to just push and go and perform for everybody else, for your teachers and your coaches, if you play sports in the workplace, for your boss. And then one day, like us, you hit your 30s and you're like, wait a minute, who am I? What about me? Um, like, I didn't even know what I like to eat. Like, I couldn't remember to eat during the day. When my husband and I were both working remote, he would come upstairs and be like, "Did you eat?" No, I'm hyper focused into, like, my corporate job, and I'm getting pinged all the time, and so, like you said, similar thing happened where I, cracked and ended up in the hospital because I was so worked up, my nervous system just cracked. I was throwing up, I couldn't keep food down. I called my therapist, she's like, "You need to get to the hospital." It was very, very scary. It's like everything went kinda blurry around me, but I still remember what happened, and so that moment is a very vulnerable one that I share, and I know we have that, similarity in the sense where we're late diagnosed and, we had just the straw that broke the camel's back after years and years and years of trauma. It's it's tough to navigate.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, even getting the diagnosis, can be very difficult because when we go to seek help, it's often diminished, or they, like to push medications or like all these different things. And full transparency, I've been on the meds. Like, I've had to be on them. They've helped me through the worst of it. But even with therapy, I think there's only so much or so deep we can get with talk therapy. That's why now I focus a lot on somatics, and my newsletters and what I share here now has so much to do with like integrating the body into the healing journey.
Yeah.
Because we can think and we can talk, but it's when it lives in our system, when it lives in our fascia, we can't just say, okay, I'm moving past this. We need to sit in it and feel it and love it so that it dissipates. So I really think that somatic healing is a huge, huge part when we have complex trauma as well.
I love that. So a lot of what you're talking about, the somatic healing, did that influence your book, The Soft Girl Era?
Yeah, so Soft Girl Era, I wrote after that 14-month period where I just set everything down. I really went all in, and I was like, I know this phase of my life is, gonna be painful and it's gonna be dark, but I had this hope that I know that when I come out, it's gonna be for the better. So I think framing it that way, helped me get through the worst moments of it. But yeah, after about that 14-month mark, I was just sitting at my desk one day and it was like an epiphany. It was like, oh my gosh, I think it's time to write a book. Like, which was something that I said in my childhood, like, someday I'm gonna write about all of this. And it's like in that moment, it came back to me. And it was like, wow, now is the time. Um, so I just started like writing immediately. I was like, what did I do that worked? Because a lot of the time, like, I did trauma therapy for a bit, but then I really started working somatically with myself. So it was a lot of like self guided healing and feeling. So that was the question I asked, like, how did I get from where I was to where I am, right? And I noticed that I used a lot of like metaphors, to like get through these
Huh?
different stages, a lot of visualizations. So that's kind of what I made the book based around, is like all of these visualizations, metaphors, activities that got me through the biggest hurdles in the journey.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she came out and there's 14 mind maps that help us kind of assess where we are and decide where we want to go.
I love that. I love that so much. So where can people buy your book if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, so I mean, all the information about it, if you want to deep dive before you buy, is available on my Substack. I have a whole section in my publication called Soft Girl Era that goes into, how I wrote it, why I wrote it, like super behind the scenes deep dives. And the book itself is available on my website, hippienesses.com, along with an SEL resource, which is social emotional learning. So I like to call that like Soft Girl Era Junior. It's for our kids, it's for our youth and adolescents so that they are better primed to deal with the difficult things that come up in life so that hopefully they don't hit 30 and have to go back and redo everything. It's important, I think, to give them the tools, that we once needed and didn't have.
I love that so much. I also love what you said about just taking the reins for your own healing journey. Because I think like everybody's different. And so everybody's going to heal a little bit differently. Talk therapy might work for one person. Maybe other people do yoga or meditation or they write their book. I had a similar experience with you in my healing, and I'm still writing my book on Substack, but it started spilling out of me at one point because I find so much healing, I imagine like you do too, in just writing. So you kind of have to figure out what works for you.
Absolutely, and there's so many different routes that it can take, and I think that speaks to the nervous system as well, because when we try something, our body will signal whether it's comfortable or not, right? And, a lot of times, maybe if it's, like, our 1st or 2nd try, it's probably not gonna feel comfortable, full disclosure. Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
put up those flags and say, "Hey, I don't want us to reverse here." Um, but I think when we're ready to frame it in a way where it's like, "I know I don't wanna feel like this anymore, and I know where I'm going will feel better," I think that's a signal that we're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say is the main tool that allowed you to really slow down? Because we talked a little bit earlier about how we are wired for productivity from a very young age. So how did you slow down? What are some tools that people who are listening can use or try out? To your point, because it may or may not work for you, but tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have the stability to resign from the workforce and not have to worry about it for a bit. Um, so along those lines, I know not everybody has that option, but I do think that learning to set boundaries and saying no. So even in the workplace, so many of us pick up the slack or, we're so good at our jobs that everyone gives us these extra tasks that are not in our payroll. I don't get paid for that. So when those things come up, um, think about your energy budget. Like, no, that is not my responsibility. And those little no's add up and, save our energy and our vigor for what we need, not what somebody else expects of us.
I love the term energy budget.
I love that too. That is like, honestly, anybody is free to use that because that phrase itself really helps me even stay current with it,
Yeah,
because even every day, our energy budget isn't the same. Like, some days, we're at 100 capacity, some days we have 30, and that's completely normal and okay. So when we're having a day where we're at 30%, I'm not going to expect myself to function on my level of, like, what a 100% day looks like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
giving yourself that grace as well,
yeah,
I think, is a really important factor, which can
yeah.
also be hard to learn.
It can be really hard to learn because you have that guilt and that inner voice that's telling you, you need to get up, you need to do something. And so when you hear that, like, what do you do? Um, the answer is rest. But when you've been running your whole life, it's really, really hard to slow down.
Yeah, like, the system itself just wants to keep exerting because that's what it feels is normal. So, a big tool for me every day, even still, is self-talk. You know, the thoughts that we've spent a lifetime building and upholding and society has been, like, reaffirming to us, it helps to talk back against them sometimes. When I'm resting and I'm just thinking about what I should be doing, I cannot produce more than what I'm capable of in this moment, right? So rest is so important. Consider it part of the work if you have to, if that helps. Because if we're not rested, we can't, have any output or any productivity. At least that's, worth what our worth is.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think it's about who you surround yourself with too, right? And you when you talk about boundaries, because some people can really drain your energy, and when you are wired from trauma, you can feel that, with your pattern recognition skills that I know many of us probably have. And so it's setting those boundaries, surrounding yourself with people who are positive and who are going to lift you up. And when you get that feeling, you might, and I think you probably have experienced this too, but like I've had to cut ties with some people because they would just deplete my energy. Like I had 30%, now I'm at -10 because I had a 10-minute conversation with you. So I think it's important to just, the old saying goes, you are who you surround yourself with. Well, it can be tough when you're surrounded by energy vampires. And when you're an empathetic person and you're a people pleaser as well, you probably maybe learn those tendencies at a young age. We learn a lot from our family of origin. And so now we show up in the world that way. We're moving through the world that way. And to unlearn those behaviors, like I know for me, when I first started setting boundaries, it was so painful. And a lot of people reacted not so nicely. Like, for example, in the workplace, it's like, no, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be doing that. That's not my job. Corporate speak, they'd like you to phrase it a lot less direct, but at a certain point, you kind of reach a boiling point, right? When everything's getting piled onto you. And so setting the boundaries is important, like you said earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another really difficult skill to learn, especially when we come from family dynamics that taught us early that people pleasing would guarantee our safety to a certain degree. Um, and it's also true about, I especially experienced this in the workplace, but if you're not so clear about what you are and are not going to do, people will just assume and try to give it to you anyway. Like if you're like coy about it and you're like, "Oh, well that's not really that's your responsibility." They'll still come up with something and try to push it on you. So, boundaries are a practice, like day in, day out practice.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but one day I woke up in the workplace and I looked around and I was like, you're doing 20% of what I'm doing. Like, why am I overexerting myself for this company that does not care about me? General, I'm not naming any company names, right? But in general, this company is a business. They don't care about me. This person also keeps dumping their work on me. Oh wait, they make more money probably than me, and they have a bigger this flashy title because we love titles. And so why am I doing your work?
Exactly. And one another qualm I had is that, like, I'm a quick worker, like, when I know what my task is, I can burn through it. So 8-hour workdays for me were just not necessary. I'm done in 4.5 hours, and you want me to sit here for another 3.5 hours
To
to
do
to
what?
do what? Other
Right.
people's work? No, thank you.
Right, right. Like you say, it's energy currency, and but we were taught. My cat Milana says hello. We were taught we were taught to measure in time, but I think we're measuring the wrong thing, especially for us highly sensitive or neurodivergent people. Um, when we approach a day, our energy might get drained even more because of the way we're wired. Like, for example, it might take me more energy to brush my teeth than it does somebody who's neurotypical. And so I can only do so much. Like you said, one day it might be 30%, one day it might be 200. But, it's like working with your own unique rhythm and frequency and honoring that, which is a skill that I still try to hone every single day. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And that's one, I think, really special thing about choosing to break away from the mainstream and take on like the entrepreneurial journey is that it's one allowed me to really become more intimate with my energy budget and what I'm capable of. And do it in a way where I'm not limited by like corporate policies where I can really speak to people freely and give my story and my best advice without there being red tape everywhere. Which was another difficult thing for me is, like, they're always like, "Oh, bring us your ideas, bring us your thoughts," and I'm an idea machine, like, I can easily see, like, what's missing from a program and be like, "Okay, I know how we can fill this gap." They don't want your suggestions, let's be real here. They wanna do it their way, and that would frustrate me so much. So having the freedom now to be creative and to, share what I need to share in a way that's, like, comfortable and what I perceive as most helpful to as many people, it's just, you know, I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you think of it, it ties back to the values alignment as well. Like if you're in a company and they're making decisions that you don't necessarily agree with and it like hurts your soul, it hurts you on a soul level because like, I worked in HR, I talk about this all the time, but like employee relations was not my jam because like having to fire somebody, I mean, like I would be like I'd be shaking. I would always do it, but it was like this mask. And then, I mean, unless they were a jerk, a complete jerk, it would feel so icky. Like I would feel it for days because you're essentially telling somebody, hey, you don't have a job anymore. I mean, whether it's performance related or not, it's a tough thing to deliver. I can imagine that social work as well is super draining, and I give kudos to people that who do that profession because that takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of heart, and so thank you for doing that, and I think, now you're doing what's best for you, I'm doing what's best for me also as an entrepreneur. I tried corporate, I'll consult, but I I just I don't really want a boss to tell me what to do. If it's a client, it's a different story, but, the red tape got me too. So,
Yeah, and especially, like, we have the ability to work with our clients and with the people that, we're connecting with now. We're not working for anybody. We're not, you know, kind of diluting what, we're capable of giving either, which was something that, I found in the typical workforce as well. It's like I have so much to give that I want to give, but there's boundary issues and, all this stuff. That even in real time in those moments, I'm like, if I could share, like, a personal anecdote right now, I know it would help this person get, you know, past this barrier that's right in front of them. But a lot of times you can't do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of I remember somebody told me this when I first started my career, leave your feelings at the door. You go to work and like you just work and you do what people tell you and you come home and it's like, oh no, like
That's not
I
a
think
thing for a lot of us.
no, or like when you're first starting out, of course, maybe it's a little bit easier to take direction, but like once you realize what's going on and how much BS goes on too, it's kind of hard to just sit around and watch. And, we're told, okay, you can't be emotional, leave your feelings at the door. But like we are all human beings at the end of the day. So, like, we're all going through things that have nothing to do with work, but we're showing up as the same person at work that you are at home, hopefully, but we're told not to, and so that can be really painful as well, when we're having to just wear that mask, and so, yeah, I think that
Yeah,
that
and that's
causes a
draining
lot
in
of
its own
trauma.
right as well.
Yeah, right, like, do you think that contributes to some of the, CPTSD from your perspective?
Um Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, I would say definitely because, growing up in a space where my emotions weren't, you know, there was no space held for them to go into a career where it was kind of the same thing. It's like you're here to do this job and not care too much and don't bring it home. Uh, you know, I've been a deep feeler all my life, so especially when I was working with the kiddos, it's like, I'm not gonna leave this place and not think about them in the evening time because I know they had a rough day and it's just not gonna magically go away. You know, like, this isn't like quantum mechanics here. They don't stop existing when I'm not there.
Yeah, 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 and that's heavy stuff as well that you're navigating, and, like, I love that you recognize in yourself, like, "Hey, I need to do some work before I," because I think you're coaching now again, right? So you're
Not quite
taking time.
yet,
Oh, yeah?
but I am gonna move into that shortly.
Awesome, that's exciting. That's exciting. If anybody has any questions, I know we're pretty much, like, at time. I think we were planning to go for about 30 minutes. So if you have anything for Em or me, drop a question in the chat. Also, don't forget if you'd like to enter for a Mellow Pillow, email me at hello at Benford Talent Alchemy. Email me your name to enter for a drawing. Super comfy stuff. Giveaway.
And that's a brand new, brand deal you're working with, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's super exciting.
Thank you. I do some social media strategy as well, and a content creator over on TikTok. So that's been a lot of fun as well in my entrepreneurial journey, which just started in January. I left the corporate world last December, so coming up on a year. And so I love writing content. I love creating content, making videos. So if you're listening and you are on TikTok, my TikTok is a lot of if you like animals, it's like a lot of animals, but it's Dudley and Benford Farms, and, we have a lot of fun here on the farm with our chickens, goats, dogs, and cats, so, yeah. No questions. Anything else on your end, Em, that you want us to cover?
Not necessarily. I mean, if anything resonated, of course, I invite you to come check out the publication. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I put newsletters out directly to your email every Sunday with somatic healing tips or anything that, I'm feeling for a new week that might be helpful. So yeah, I love to do like community interaction and just spread, love and healing vibes as much as I can. So,
And you
thanks so much
do.
for having me, Jen.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This has been such a fun conversation. I knew from the moment that I met you, which, by the way, if you're listening, we met on Substack. Great place to meet kind humans who are like minded. And so I'm so happy that you were able to join. And yeah, if you're not following Emily, please do. It's at Hippiness Is. She's a great writer. She gives great tips on somatic healing. And so, yeah, you're missing out if you're not following her. So thanks everybody for joining, and we will have a little write up and share the live. So if you joined a little bit later, look out for it in your inbox. We'll probably both be sharing it. Alan, thank you as well. I see we have a comment. Thank you for joining, and thank you everybody. Thank you, Em. This has been awesome. Have a
Yeah.
great night or wherever you are in the world. Have a good one.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.